The Fantasmagorium is proud to present Money, Murder, and Minnesota, a retrospective and review of all things Fargo. Gang Cold War. Hang on just one sec. I'm going to mute that. Gang Cold War, a very disturbed nurse, a family drama, 2 ladies on the lam, and a Mormon. This'll be fine. The award-winning Coen Brothers executive produced and Noah Hawley run FX series of Fargo is what we are here for, so let's go. Kat is here. I am Scotty R37, and Steve goes marching on. I know, that was the dirtiest joke I could do right off the hop. I'm sorry, did it almost come out your nose?
No.
Okay, good. Oh, man. The only thing I can say about these 2 episodes is it's tense. Like, the entire time I'm on the edge of my seat. How are you finding it so far? Now that we've actually broached, you've seen, tell me about your experience with Fargo season 4, Kat.
Well, the first 2 episodes didn't grab me, but now the plot thickens.
Indeed. Oh my God. How much do you hate Gaetano?
I mean, he's very cartoonish, and sometimes it's funny, but a lot of times it just seems like it's too obvious that everybody's problems would be solved if he just were to get off, you know? And therein lies a problem, because when you're telling a story about a potential gang war, they have no aversions to killing people. So it's like both sides suspect what's kind of going on. So why are we beating around the bush? It's like, is Josto stupid and thinks that because he clearly doesn't like his brother at all? And it's like, you know, well, we'll get to that when we break it down, but you get what I mean. It's like, I was actually much more intrigued by the supporting plot lines in these 2 episodes.
Well, you'll have to point them out when we get there. But one of the things that I thought was sort of a get out of jail free for Gaetano, to a certain extent, is the whole being from the old country. That gives you a higher sort of prestige.
Right.
In La Cosa Nostra, if I know correctly. Like, I only know from movies. Also, there's another thing that I wanted to ask you about, if it was a Coen Brothers thing or if it was a Godfather thing. And I think you know what I would be talking about, but we'll get there when we get there, because it's not till later.
Okay.
No one is in the chat. That's understandable. We started half an hour late today. So if anybody is on the rerun, like and subscribe, and please comment on our punctuality. But with no audience comes no responsibility. How would you describe?
It says we have 2 viewers.
It says we have 2 viewers, but without the comments. Hello, thank you for being here. Lurkers are appreciated as well. So if you guys could like and subscribe and share, that'd be great. Thanks. Ratopiario is the name of the episode.
Yes.
You have any idea what that means?
No, but like last week, I'm just going to probably intermix the order just because it's easier than trying to remember scene by scene.
Sure. And the second episode is called The Pretend War. You have been warned for spoilers. Those are the titles.
Yes, so we begin picking up a little bit before the last episode. Because the last episode ended, the second one ends with the U.S. Marshal kicking down the door at the funeral home. But we actually pick up a little bit earlier when he first showed up at the police station in Kansas City. And he doesn't immediately announce like who he is, and he doesn't show his badge. He's just sitting there, you know, Timothy Oliphant drinking, and he's a Mormon, and he's letting the guy know this, and he's talking about his beliefs and how they, you know, the 10 tribes disappeared and the Israelites, and talking about how their skin became darker so we wouldn't be attracted to them. I'm thinking, racist. It's like, okay, another strong theme of the season with the various immigrant groups being all racist towards each other. And
oh yeah, but there is a part later where even Chris Rock, what's his name? Cannon. Yeah. Lloyd Cannon is rather, you know, racist to,
of course,
to a black man.
Everybody in this show is racist against each other.
Like, and you heard about the whole like, oh, it's progressive or whatever. That was one of the criticisms that was levied against this season. And I just think it's like, no, this is my dad's kind of racism. We just hate everybody. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's
Like,
something that you're not going to see out of a lot of modern Hollywood. So it's surprising that they did that, like portraying so blatantly how these minority groups are openly racist against each other. Granted, this is a period piece show, takes place in 1950.
Sure.
But it's still, to put that front and center, I thought was like, okay, that's pretty surprising that they would do that. But it also feeds into the theme from when the very first episode opened with Ethel reading the news, her report talking about how you should be uniting with each other to overcome the power structure rather than being racist towards each other. But we see that even extends to all the white people in the series as well. So the police chief, in like 3 different times, takes the Lord's name in vain, and the Deafy, as he's nicknamed, because he chooses to hear what he wants to hear. I'm just going to call him Deafy, whatever his name is.
That's good.
And he's like, man, I've never met somebody who blasphemies more than you, sir. And he's clearly.
And I've been to Cleveland.
Right, I've been to Cleveland. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? And I like that he's kind of putting out feelers to see if the police chief is going to be racist towards him simply for being a Mormon before. Or I guess that isn't racist. That's what's the word
Prejudice?
for that? Yeah. And
I don't know. It's just bigotry.
Right. He's putting out feelers for that until finally the chief is like, well, why are you here? And he's like, well, 2 convicts broke out of the women's prison and I've been hunting them down. And we know they came here. And he's like, oh, hell, son, why didn't you lead with that? Who are you? And then he pulls his coat back to reveal his U.S. Marshal's badge. And at that point, the police chief is a bit more cordial. And so he tasks the corrupt officer in his department.
Weff. Weff.
Yes, he tasks him with partnering with Deafy. And he's like, but sir, I'm working the murder case of the attempted murder case of the socialite. And he's like, we'll give it to that other guy. You can help this guy out here and look up names of potential, places that they would be hiding any relatives or associates. And I didn't get why. I get why he's kind of miffed by this, because he's corrupt. He's on the take for the Fada family. He wants to cover it up. He doesn't want anybody else in the department looking into it, which tells us that the crime families don't have the entire department bought and paid for, just like certain people. And so that was an interesting clue. So he pairs him with Deafy, and they find out that one of the convicts' sister lives in town, runs the funeral home. And then we cut to them sitting in the car at the stakeout, and you get to see Deafy embracing his nickname to the fullest as he keeps kind of antagonizing, because the guy doesn't like the what's his name doesn't like the Weffy, or doesn't like the stakeout, because he would rather get back to the other case. Like, this is stupid. We shouldn't be here, blah, blah, blah. And he keeps insulting him like, oh, F your aunt and uncle. He's like, sorry, I didn't hear that. What was that?
I'm a trifle deaf. You'll have to speak up.
And they see Oretta walk across the street delivering the pie and going back in. And then finally, seeing that Thurman answers the door, all innocent or whatever, they're like, okay, let's move. So you see all the cops and everybody. He bangs the door down with his boot, comes in, and you have this bit of a running joke where they say, hands up, and Thurman just holds the pie up. There's a table right there he could set it at, but they don't tell him to put the pie down, and that goes on for a little while, which I thought was funny. He's like, search the house.
That pie is causing me so much anxiety. It's Chekhov's pie. I'm waiting for someone to eat it and to see what's going to happen.
Exactly. And I had only seen the first 3 episodes before, so I was starting to remember a bit as we were watching this part of it. So eventually he walks into the marshal walks into the kitchen, Deafy does, and he sees that they're cleaning up dinner, but there's 5 places set. And the fact that they've already finished means that they can't lie and say that, oh, we were waiting for somebody to come or whatever. But Ethel's mom doesn't lie and say, oh, some friends were passing through and they already ate and left. She doesn't say anything. And I find that this episode is defined by the 4 acts of idiocy, or these 2 episodes, 4 acts of idiocy that almost seemed a bit out of character. But and this is the first bit where
hang on before you get into your act of idiocy.
Yeah.
Lemon.
Hello.
Thank you. It's good to see you, Lemon. Appreciate it.
So
first act of idiocy, please.
The first act of idiocy is they search the house, right? And they go down to the basement, and you have this tense scene where they're marching Thurman down to the basement, and he unlocks the door, and they push him aside. They're like, get out of here. And he goes back up the stairs, and they go inside and they look at the tray vaults in the wall, and they start opening a couple, and they find, a rotting corpse, and, typical, they get scared and decide not to look at the others, and they open the others, but they didn't find anything, and they leave. And it turns out that the two convicts, Swanee and what's her name? See, this is the thing. I can't remember any of the characters' names in the show.
That's fine. That's fine.
And they were hiding underneath. So they go back upstairs and they tell Deafy that, okay, the house is clear. There's nobody here. And Ethel's mom invokes the Lord and how, no, I don't have any contact with my sister. I told her it was only a 5-year stint for robbery. I told her to get right with the Lord and absolve your sins and all this kind of stuff. And Deafy's gullible and accepts that because he's religious as well. And
okay.
the act of idiocy is she still didn't answer the question of who are the other two. Like they clearly were just here. And he's not pressuring her at all to answer this question because once she answers this, call to God type thing, he just accepts that and he's not going to apply the pressure at all. And he's just going to accept it and leaves. Like, no, she could have lied at any point during this and said that anybody was sitting here earlier, but she didn't. And you're just going to walk out, and everybody else who could see that clearly there were 5 people who were here and now only 3, fresh food that literally they only just finished eating dinner. But no, you're just going to walk out and accept the loss. It's like, that's stupid. I didn't buy, especially since this guy is traveling from out of state as a U.S. Marshal to deal with this. And he's just already giving up. And we see that he is pretty strong-headed and, really a go-getter. So the fact that he's I'm like, that's really stupid. That's the first act of idiocy I did not buy in this episode.
I did believe the character interaction. And I think that he is going to say that his faith is his virtue, but his belief in his faith is what led him out of that room. And it was manipulated by someone who was protecting family. So I think it may be stupid, but it could be stupid because of a manipulation of a character flaw, which would be his faith. So I'll say it forward and back.
Yeah.
So I didn't find it that dumb. I thought you were going to say, why didn't they open the last drawer? Because they have
that's a typical
drawer.
trope in a lot of films, though. But
yeah. And then so there's 6 drawers, and they open 5 of them, but the last one or the 5th one has like a big fat rotting corpse, and they all just give up and they leave. And it's like, no, guys. And then also the idiocy before that. If you're going into a room where you think that there is going to be someone, you don't get to flick the switches and make noises outside of the door. If you're looking for someone, it warns them that you're coming in. So I thought that the entire entry into the parlor was not the parlor, but the mortuary was, that was a botched situation.
Yeah. So the next act of idiocy.
Well, and I just wanted to say to Lemon that pie is causing me so much anxiety. Me? No, not you. Not you. And of course, George Michael believes in faith. I don't.
So the next act of idiocy is that the 2 convicts now come back upstairs after the police have left. And they decide that they're going to leave. Thurman's going to give them a ride. And the sister says, we don't want anything, blah, blah. And remember, in the previous episode, the convicts said the reason they came there is because they heard they had money troubles. Now, we don't know how they heard this. I get the sense that the sister didn't tell her about this by writing to her in prison or calling her, but somehow they knew about this. And like, oh, we're going to help you, blah, blah, blah. And the sister's naive enough to think that they're just going to leave and not do anything about it. And it's like, you took a loan. We find out that they took a loan from Lloyd Cannon. That's why he was at the house, because they had money problems and he has a bank. So they took a loan. But they didn't bother telling them, hey, look, I am absolutely serious. I don't want you to help with this. And by the way, don't you even think of touching, that other, those people over there, because we have an arrangement with them. So don't you dare do anything like that. That seemed like, again, an obvious thing. If I have a convict coming over who has a propensity for stealing and wants to help, the obvious implication is that she wants to help by going out and committing crimes. So tell her clearly that do not mess. If you're don't mess with these people. And she's got the common sense to tell her that. It's common sense.
It's common sense in 2024.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm gonna give it time period pass. I'm also gonna say that Ethelrita is used as we can't talk right now. A lot. Like whenever Ethel's around, it's like you go to your room. And like we're supposed to be all surprised when Ethel
But they've
learns
been there a
things.
while now, not just that one.
I know.
So it's like I didn't buy that. So Thurman drives them out of town, and they're in the trunk of the car, but they took the pie with them. And the girl,
No, she just scarfed the pie. She scarfed the pie before they left,
yeah,
and then they get transported in the coffin.
Yes, they get transported in the coffin in the back of the hearse, and she starts getting sick because it was laced with ipecac. And they get to this place where they want him to drop him off at, and Thurman doesn't know where they are. He figures, okay, I'll drop you off. He's gullible. So they get out, and they're hanging out at this spot of town, and the next day, they're milling around watching, because this is where Lloyd Cannon runs his books, or his money keeping stuff. And there's a funny scene racketeering where this funny kid, I didn't hear what the initial encounter was about, but he walks up to Loy, like, what was he trying to hustle him for money or something like that?
Yeah, he was just like, can I get 2 nickels to rub together?
Yeah,
I just want to get a cup of coffee. And then Loy is like, is that why your eyes are so watery or something like that? Your eyes are weeping. And he says something, and it's just like, watch this.
And then he stole from him or something. I kind of missed that scene. I was distracted.
All right. So anyway, man of color walks up to prominent man of color and says, can I have some money? And the guy says, boys, check this out. And so he pulls out a huge roll, and obviously the beggar's eyes light up. And he says, now what, you see that? And he asks Dr. Senator, what do they call that look on his face? The blight. And it's like, the blight. He saw my role, and he started making plans with money that I haven't even given him. Look at what this does. And he puts it back in his pocket. He's like, I just stole from that man. Money wasn't his, but he felt like I owed it to him. So go fuck off. And it was cold.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's going to come back to bite him in some way later on, because it was a very not necessarily from that character, but from just Loy's perspective on these things in general is going to perhaps come back to bite him. We'll see. So
it is tough. It is tough to a certain extent, and I tried incredibly, and I think I succeeded. But to separate Chris Rock from Cannon,
yeah,
like, it is tough. But I do like Chris Rock so much that I let it slide.
Yeah. So that night, the 2 girls, having come by weapons, decide that they're going to rob the place. So they break in and they kill one. They announce their presence by walking up to the guy who's standing outside guarding the door. They're like, "Hey, Tic Tac," and they hold up the gun. It's like a big guy. He doesn't give them any fight. So they go inside and they immediately shoot the first guy they see. They're like, hands up or whatever, and they go to start and collect the money. But then the other girl, I should remember her name, just the Native American woman, just starts vomiting everywhere because
Swan Lake is
Swanee or Swan Lake, or
well, the nickname is Swan Lake for the squaw.
Okay, so Swan starts vomiting everywhere.
I can look up the other name.
And Zelmer or whatever her name is, she goes over to the desk to collect some of the money, and she fires the gun, hits the guy out of the chair, so starts raffling up some of the funds, and they're all kind of like, okay, don't shoot us. And so they've killed 3 people now, but they take the money, what they can, and Swanee ends up throwing up in the bag of money and getting it all over it. And, Zelmer is upset by this because of what they plan to do with the money, and they flee. They go back to their new hideout, wherever it is. It's not really specified. And Zelmer is cleaning the money in the bathtub and then washing it, smelling it, and then hanging it on a clothesline in the room. And Swanee is lying in the bed trying to recover from the ipecac. And all of a sudden, Swanee gets out to hang up some more of the money. We see this corpse rise out of the bathtub, and the corpse walks over into the room, and Swanee is in Zelmare is sensing its presence, and she's getting really scared. The music's getting really tense, and she sees that like something is just causing the bed sheets to pull down, the bedspread to pull down off of Swanee like a ghost or something. And Zelmare's getting really scared, and it's like, what's going on? And all of a sudden, the tension breaks. The corpse is gone. The creepiness is gone. And Zelmare goes over to Swanee and says, "Are you all right?" And tries to shake her awake. And it looks almost like she's dead at first, like not
Yeah.
responding. And then she finally wakes up and throws up again. And she's like, "Oh, it'll be all right."
Well, that guy shows up twice, and also at
He
the beginning
does.
of
He
the first
also shows up at the funeral home, sitting at the bottom of the stairs, and Ethel sees him.
right. And this happens after Swan Lake is eating the pie, and she's saying that it isn't necessarily places that are haunted, it's people.
Right.
And so there is a supernatural element being introduced right now, which I'm like, oh, that's fine. We had a 200-year-old Viking sin eater,
500.
and
Yeah.
was it 500 years? Sorry.
Like 540 or something like that. He's really old.
He's really old. Anyway, and so the supernatural aspect of this is not bothering me that it showed up. It's like, I guess it's a little jarring considering season 1,
Mhm.
but I'm fine so far. Like, I hope, but he does, you know what he, like, in terms
I
of the
think
character design
Malvo
of it?
is supernatural.
Yeah, but it was never overt. It was always implied. And then that's why,
Well,
like,
he
the
did
new,
magically escape Lester's basement, which had no escape. He just went downstairs and he vanished. So that was the
that
most
is
overt
true.
thing that he did. But yeah, so I agree that in this season it was kind of jarring because it's been very grounded kind of crime story, and all of a sudden, there's a corpse sitting at the bottom of the stairs, and now there's a corpse rising out of the bathtub. But I did like that point that Swanee says that it's not places haunted, it's people, like you said, and what that mean. And clearly the implication is because she ate the pie that was poisoned with ipecac by Oretta, who we know is a serial killer. So that's interesting.
Well, and not only that, like, even like, Ethel saw Solomon Grundy. I think he looks like Solomon
He
Grundy.
does, doesn't he?
And then there is no one, Zelmare and Swanee don't see him, but it is implied that he dies. But then even Zelmare says he does that sometimes. Like, people have been talking about which one is the incarnation of death in each show that we've watched so far. And I think that death is actually present in this season. Like, Solomon Grundy is death. Or maybe, and again, I'm just brainstorming, or is he there to represent the eerie nature of, like, a mortuary?
I think he's there to represent Oretta's victim because he shows up when Swanee is sick from Oretta's poisoned pie. And that's when
not to Ethel.
Right, but he shows up, but he's still in the funeral home. But he's still in the same funeral home where we know that at least one of Ethel's victims has already been sent, and maybe more because she was working at that hospital for a while. Sure. So I think that might have something to do with it. So meanwhile, Gaetano decides that he is frustrated with leadership. He wants to make a power play. So Rabbi and Cannon's youngest son are in their attic room, and Rabbi decides to make the kid feel better by saying, when I was a kid, I was in the same position you were. I was the one traded over, and he's trying to bond with him and stuff. So they go into Josto's office to put some stuff in there or whatever, and they see Gaetano sitting behind the desk acting like he's, king of the hill. And he's like trying to intimidate him and stuff. And then Josto walks in and he's like, "What are you two doing here?" He's like, "What the hell are you doing there sitting behind the desk?" And he's like, jabbing at him and stuff. And it's like, you could tell this is not going to end well. It's just like they're building the rivalry. And I have to say, I kind of agree with Gaetano because Josto seems a bit soft and a bit, how should I say, like kind of lackadaisical, kind of not all there. He's just kind of a, kind of screw up.
No, but see, here's
hapless. I don't know.
No, I don't think he's hapless. I think that they sort of paint him comedically because he's trying to step into his father's shoes. Like, and again, I'm trying to get past the fact that I like Jason Schwartzman, but like, he was the traded child.
Yeah.
And so the idea of trading the children was intended so that an understanding could be reached.
Yeah.
And if you consider him to be soft, the thing is that he's the one who is.
No, I don't think soft. Like, what's the word? Like, he's aloof. That's the word I'm trying to think of. He's extremely aloof as to everything that's going on. Like, the notion that he's even surprised that Gaetano's in his office. Like, well, what do you think? This guy's pretty much staked his claim, and he's not leaving till you deal with this. You know?
It's going to be interesting because I'm going to have to see Josto interact with the Cannons more. Because there hasn't been a meeting between Josto and Lola yet.
Yeah.
And so that'll definitely set a tone, but I don't think it's going to be a friendly meeting like it was between the Fada's father.
Yeah. Oh, Otis was the name of the corrupt cop I was trying to think of. But anyway.
Otis?
Otis with a D. So Gaetano then goes down to like a bar or whatever where the other Fada members are hanging out, and he gives his big speech, and he's alluding to how, we're soft, the Cannons are pushing in on us, we need to resolve this slaughterhouse thing, we can't obey this, and Josto's the wrong leader, blah, blah, blah. And they start some of the guys start kind of listening to him, including Calamita, who was just the Josto's right-hand man who I was trying to think of last week. And Calamita comes around to the idea too. And so Gaetano comes up with this idea, and he orders a hit on Lloyd Cannon's eldest son. And so this is the next act of idiocy, where Calamita takes Rabbi with him. Rabbi knows that this isn't something that he knows that Josto wouldn't do this, because he knows what Josto's position has been this entire time. Whereas he knows what Gaetano's position is, because he's been making his point known the entire time. Yet Rabbi isn't smart enough to ask about it until the very last second when they get up there. It's like, you didn't think that clearly from what's been going on that this is clearly the brother, and that maybe you should have double checked with your boss, and you just decided to blindly accept, because Rabbi's smart, he's not an idiot, he picks up on this, but it's like he waits to ask Calamita and kind of poke him about it until right before it's time to pull the guns out. And it's like, I didn't buy that. He seemed smarter than that. I could buy another hapless goon falling for that, but not Rabbi. Because Rabbi's been a very close confidant of Josto. I mean, he's the one put in charge of watching Cannon's son, practically. So, and he's
that's a babysitting job. That's not an important job.
It is when you're protecting the son of the other guy and trying to prevent a mob war over it. And he was in the office when Gaetano was, speaking his piece to Josto. So it should be obvious to Rabbi that this is not something that Josto was going to do. Yet he doesn't think to question it until right before, right when it's too late. I didn't buy that. I think he was smarter than that. But anyway, he unrolls the window. Rabbi pulls the gun out as the trigger man, but he hesitates and won't shoot. Loy's son sees this happen, and Calamita, frustrated that Rabbi won't fire, pulls out his own gun, and Rabbi makes sure to pull Calamita's arm back so the gun fires into the back of the car where nobody's sitting, and into the back of the cannon cars where nobody's sitting, and the cannons get away. And, the cannons go home, and Loy is pissed off. He's like, they took a shot at you. They're coming after me. And his son tries to reason, no, I'm a proxy. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, a proxy is like, yeah, boy, I know what a proxy is. He says, see these other guys. What's your name? Cannon. See those guys over there? And he points to his other three goons in the room. He's like, they have their own names. You are my name. They're taking a shot at you is them taking a shot at me. That's what this is. And he says, Dad, I'm not really into this. Like, I don't have to choose. It's like, you can't have both. You can't have peace and ultimate power and less power or ultimate power at the same time. It doesn't work that way. You can't have it both ways, but that's what Loy wants. And his son, and he's like, well, you better get with the program, boy. And his son just kind of walks away, because you could tell his son's not really into this whole gangster thing. It's not really his style.
No, he's definitely not happy.
No. Whereas Loy is like, oh yeah, let's do it. So meanwhile, Dr. Senator goes to meet the emissary from the Fada family at a diner, and they're upset because the previous night, when Calamita and another goon were driving a truckload of guns that they were smuggling in their fruit truck, they drove into a big fireball from apparently fuel being dumped on the road. It was kind of neat how it happens because they drive through and all of a sudden the fire just ignites because they catch it. You see the guys in the dark lighting the fire around them. So they're forced to slam on the brakes. And the 3 cannon guys step in front of the truck with shotguns, and Calamita is frozen with fear. He knows what this means. And one of the cannon guys comes up to the door of the fruit truck. He opens it, yanks the goon out, and throws them into the fire, and he starts burning to death. And Calamita doesn't look. He's just kind of sitting there very tensely as this guy's screaming as he's burning to death. Then
I don't think that's accurate.
That's what happened.
No. Hang on one second. So what happened is that they go over. Oh wait, yeah, no, they go over to the truck. The cannon gang goes to the truck. They open the door. They pull him out, the younger boy. Then the younger boy punches the guy with the shotgun, and the guy with the shotgun throws him into the fire.
They were still going to do that anyway.
You think they were going to kill that guy no matter what?
Because the guy they killed was a random goon. Calamita is the right-hand man, and they know that. They weren't going to kill him yet, but they were going to kill that kid to send a message. Like, he's nobody. He's just another goon. They were going to kill him. So they pull Calamita out, and he's talking tough to him. Like, oh, you going to take a shot or whatever, do something? And Calamita...
in Italian. He's doing it all in Italian.
Yeah, the cannon guy's speaking Italian. And so he kind of casually... Well, yeah, the cannon guy's the one talking shit to him, not Calamita. Calamita's just standing there silently, not saying anything. It's the cannon man who's talking to him, saying, you take a shot at us, you do that, blah, blah, blah. And he's waiting for him to fight back or say something. And Calamita's just standing there, won't say anything. So the cannon guy just takes the gun, tips it over his shoulder so it's in the fire a bit. He then leans it up and presses it against Calamita's left cheek, burning it, like scalding. And Calamita stands there and takes it. And he waits for Calamita to do something, and he won't. And the guy's like, yeah, that's what I thought. You're just all bark. And then they get in Calamita's fruit truck, and they drive away with the guns.
But before that, Calamita says, it doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter what you do. I will find you, and I will kill you. He says that to him in Italian.
Yeah, and it's unclear if he understood what he said in Italian.
Yeah, it's fine. That's not Calamita's problem.
Well, I mean, it is if you want to threaten the guy. It's like he doesn't understand, then whatever. But they leave him there.
Says he swears to Jesus Christ on the cross. He's not talking to the guy with the gun.
Yeah, it's still like, okay, whatever. But
anyway, a basic understanding.
Yeah, but that's, swear to Jesus doesn't mean shit. So it's like he's just kind of talking.
No, but it does mean a lot.
The guy has a shotgun in your face. And the guy's like, of all the things to swear for at that point, don't swear that I get out of this alive. Just swear that
the last thing that the Irish, what was the name of the Irish gang? Last thing he said to the rabbi was a curse on you and all of your sons. So cursing you from the grave is kind of what this, it is being somewhat foreshadowed, if you will. We are in a mortuary, so being one with your faith or one with your family or the idea of a soul actually, somewhat carries through Fargo in general. I wanted to say hello to DJ Play Nice, who was saying hello to Lemon Pie, who I think left, Deej.
So then they go back. So the cannon guys drive the fruit truck over back to the cannon place, and where the racketeer ring was, and they unload the guns, and they decide that they're gonna. And Loy has a plan. He's like, we're gonna sell the guns to the Fargo Mafia at cost, led by the Fargo Mafia, led by Mort Kellerman. And the reason we're gonna sell it at cost instead of premium prices is because we will ask them to give us a favor in return, because he anticipates there might be a mob war with the Fadas, and they're going to need extra help with that. And so Dr. Senator's okay with that, but Loy, meanwhile, looks over at the scene of the robbery. He sees the blood and everything, and he asks, and they're like, well, there were 2 women. One's black, the other was a Native American. And he's like, and Doc Senator is like, well, the Italians could have farmed out the job to 2 broads. And Loy's like, no, that doesn't make sense. You don't do something that's stupid, but then do other things which were kind of smart. And it's like this, there's something off. And the stupid thing being taking a shot at his son and missing and screwing up the job, and the smart thing being farming out to make this robbery look unrelated. So he's like, this doesn't really make sure, and he's kind of angry. But Doc Senator reminds him, look, let me investigate this. You don't want to start a mob war unless you're sure, because I think that the brothers are fighting. The Fada brothers are arguing with each other, and we don't know who did this. Like, if it was as he puts it, the idiot or the ape or whatever. And so the next morning, when the emissary for the Fada family shows up and gets mad at them for, oh, you stole our guns and blah blah blah, and he's like, well, you took a shot at the boys, at our boss's son. And the Italians, the emissary is like, what? And he looks over his shoulder to his two guys, and they're like, no. And Doc Senator realizes that they're not trying to dupe him, that they're being genuine. And he realizes that, his suspicions are confirmed, that this was not something that Josto ordered. He's like, you need to get your house in order. He's like, how about the robbery a couple nights ago at our place, our racketeering joint with the two broads? And the Italians are equally surprised, no idea what's going on. He's like, yeah, you need to get your house in order. So Doc Senator is kind of pleased that they could potentially avoid a war, because he starts logically thinking that all their problems are being caused by Gaetano. And so he needs to go back to tell Lloyd Cannon. Meanwhile, Rabbi goes back to tell Josto about, to apologize to him, because even though Rabbi was suspicious enough to thwart the assassination, he still seems
not apologize.
It. Well, he does, because he goes there and he says, oh, I got to tell you something. I got to tell you. It's like, what the hell do you want? He's like, I screwed up. Like, he's telling him he screwed up because it's like he's describing what happened, and he's describing it almost as if he's giving himself an out just in case Josto did order the hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in a sense, he's like halfway trying to come clean on the off chance that Josto ordered it. And on the other hand, he's trying to say, oh, I did the right thing by stopping it from happening in case you didn't. So I thought it was interesting the way he was phrasing that to give himself an out. And sure enough, Josto's like, I didn't order shit. I didn't tell anybody to do jack shit about this. And he gets really upset. So he goes back to his place and he finds Gaetano in what he calls the war room, where you have the great paintings and the big board table, and you see the emissary, the negotiator is there from the Cannon family, and they're all laying out their plans. Like, he's like, what is this? Your battle plans for a war room? And Gaetano's like, you're soft. You haven't done it. You're not good for this, blah, blah, blah. And Josto and his guys whip out guns and start, and Josto shoots the painting. He shoots the glass in the window twice.
Shooting at Gaetano and crew, but missing intentionally.
Yes, that's why I say he's missing. He's shooting at things because he's getting upset. And Gaetano comes across his desk and challenges him. He's like, you need to be smart about this. We need to take our power. And he's like, oh, really? I need to be smart about this? You're the dumbass who missed the shot. And Gaetano's like, we need to make our power move. Those bastards, they stole our guns, and now they're coming out. And he's like, the reason they stole from us is because you put a hit out on the guy's son and tried to kill him, and you fucked up, which makes it even worse that you screwed up bad enough that you did it in the first place. And then he points the gun, and Gaetano sort of kind of...
Oh, they're going to fight.
He pauses almost like, yeah, he's got a point. We did screw up, and that wasn't good. And then Josto well, he pauses when... Yes, he does.
He flashes the crazy eyes like it was taking every ounce of restraint for him not to just leap at three guys with guns.
Josto said, you're the one... You screwed up by not... you didn't... If you're going to do that, you need to make sure you follow through, and you didn't. And he kind of... And that's what causes him initially to pause and get kind of upset. And that's when Josto points the gun at his genitals. And he's like, yeah, come on, why don't you do it? Why don't you threaten me or whatever? And Gaetano backs down, but he's really upset. Really, super pissed about it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, at the police station...
okay, well, no, yes. Okay, we'll go to the police station.
So Duffy's at the police station, and Otis tells him that they have a witness here. And the witness says, yeah, these ladies, they stuck me up. They want you right out of town or whatever. And they said they're going to Chicago. And of course, Duffy knows that no fugitive tells a stranger where they're going. And as the witness is leaving after giving his statement, Otis tries to slip him some money or whatever. And he's asking about the money. He's like, what the fuck? He's like, shut up. And then because Otis has the OCD thing, he insists on knocking at the door 3 times. And he's like, you're insulting me, and you're the one who doesn't know how to open the door. And he steps outside. But Duffy saw this. So he knows that this guy's lying, but he doesn't know why he's in such a hurry. And so Otis comes back over to him. He's like, well, I guess you'll be moving on to Chicago. Good luck. And he's like, well, no, we U.S. Marshals were a national organization. I could forward that information to their office, but I was tasked with being in Kansas City, and Kansas City is where I'm going to stay. And I still don't get why Otis is upset about this. It's like, okay, so he stays in Kansas City. Who cares? It's like, you could let him go around trying to find these fugitives, but there's no reason at this time for Otis to think that the fugitives are interfering with the Fadas. He doesn't know that they committed that robbery yet at the cannons. So,
no, but the thing is while the Fadas and the cannons don't have the entire police department in their pockets, separate or collective, that Otis, he just doesn't want a partner because he's been assigned Timothy Olifantastic, and he's like, he's a crooked cop who does not need a shadow, but he has been assigned Deafy, so he has no choice. So what he's trying to do is just get rid of Deafy. And he thought, because he's an idiot with an OCD, and he's like, well, I'll just bribe some guy from the In-N-Out Burger, it's the gas station outside of town, who is obviously a simpleton, just to say, oh, they left.
yeah.
And trying to get Deafy off Otis's back.
Well, yeah, because he's associated with the mob, but it's like, you could just let him hang around, because Otis isn't really crucial necessarily to what's particularly going on right now, because it doesn't seem like there's been any headway about the attempted murder on the socialite. So it's like, because they don't really revisit the particulars of that case in the episode. So it's like, he's worried, but it's like, well, it doesn't seem like anybody else is, because even though the police chief assigned that case to somebody else, we don't find out if that guy's making headway on the case at all, which is interesting. They don't check in with him in these two episodes. Maybe they will next week. We'll see. Or when we watch the next episode. So anyway, Deafy obviously is suspicious. He knows this guy doesn't want him around. He wonders what this is about. So they go to town, and they're staking out the Fada place. And he's asking, because he mentioned that before, and they see Gaetano come out, and he's angry because he's just had to back down from Josto, and he's watching them, and then he sees Calamita come out, and he gets out of the car, walks up to Gaetano, and he's like, hey, what's going on? And he's speaking to him Italian, like, get the hell out of here. And then Calamita comes out, and he sees that he's got the burn mark on his face. He's like, ooh, that's an O. Where'd you get one of those? He's like, you want me to give you one of those? He's like, I'm from Salt Lake City. I'm a good Mormon from Salt Lake City. And a while back, we had some Italians like you guys come up there and try and get our sons hooked on, turned into junkies, and our daughters turned into whores. And so we dealt with the problem with some horses and nooses. Dragged them probably about 6 or 7 miles before their heads ripped off. Now you have a good, nice day. Good day. Popped off. And have a good, nice day with the Lord. May the Lord be with you. And he turns and gets back in the car. And it's like, okay, that was interesting that he felt the need to get out of the car and do that. Because I don't know exactly why they were parked there outside the Fada's place exactly.
Well, that's because Otis had to go in to meet with everybody, because Rabbi went to go and collect Otis to go, and it's like, I'm going to shake down an informant, and he was acting like he was taking care of it, and so they went to just where Otis would go regularly. They went to.
Was fine, just waiting outside. Oh yeah, because it was an informant or something, or that was the excuse. Yeah, okay.
Right. We don't want to spook him. And then Gaetano and Calavici showed up, and Caliente, what's his name? Calamita. And so but if a cop is sitting in a car and sees something like Gaetano pacing outside of an establishment in 1950, because let's not forget, you could smoke inside. Like, something was a hubbub. He looks like an oaf, like an ogre, like an enforcer. And then Palomino shows up.
Calamita.
That's what I said. Anyway, that's bait for cops, especially ones who are on a case.
Yeah, and he's kind of feeling them out, and they didn't really say anything to him, so he just kind of gets back in the car, and they leave. And Rabbi, meanwhile, he goes to get some groceries. He's told his because before he went to this meeting, even he told the cannon boy who's been watching that if I don't come back, I'm dead or arrested. And so on his way after they do that meeting with Gaetano, he leaves and goes to the grocery store. And while he's walking back, Lloyd Cannon confronts him with his guys, and he wants to know straight up, like, did Josto order the hit, or was it the ape? Was it the ogre? And Josto's doesn't want to talk about any of it and keeps taunting it. So, well, the cops are going to be by. They come by every 10 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And Josto, and then the boy says, look, I know who you are, and I know what you did. You betrayed your family, and you murdered your father. Why would you betray your own family like that? So he's very old school. And that he doesn't.
Why, but how does it feel?
Like, how does it feel? Like, well, he also says, yeah, I know what you did. And he says, maybe you can you want to smooth this over with me, you can give my boy back as a start. Like, he's indicating that this arrangement we have is now over with. And he's like, you tell me
You're
who it is.
obviously comfortable with betrayal.
Yeah, you're comfortable with that. So why don't you just give me the son back and let's be done with this? And the rabbi doesn't want to tell him if it was Josto or Gaetano who ordered the hit, but Lloyd's smart enough he can figure out what the issue is now. So then he leaves, and he cuts his hand first. He cuts Rabbi's hand with switchblade and knocks his groceries and the bottles out of his hand, and then walks off, and they drive away.
But that's also, when confronted, he says, what did you do? And he's like, I protected your son, which is
that's right. And Lloyd is just kind of livid about this because he's
no, exactly. Why would he believe him?
Yeah, he has no incentive to believe this, especially since he's somebody who, again, betrayed his whole family. And so he's like, why should I believe you, especially when you go against your own blood?
And knows a completely different story from the one that we have been presented. I assume that that's the actual factual, but it's like, you were the boo-hoo boy at the back, help me daddy, while the boys rushed in. And Rabbi's like, you have no idea what the fuck you are talking about, in not so many words.
Right.
But like, we've seen the entire reason the Irish gang got wiped out is because Rabbi didn't like the Irish, and he is Irish.
Yeah.
Just going with the storytelling and the twists and turns of individual choice within a group. I think it's really good.
And like you mentioned last week, that you got the vibe that back in the 30s or whatever, or 30s or early 40s, when this trade had happened with Josto and Rabbi, that they probably weren't seeing their families in between, because Josto was angrily saying, Dad, you left me with them for 3 years, and being really pissed off, and his father just trying to shut him up about it. And Rabbi clearly felt that too, because that's why he had no shame betraying his own family, because it's like, well, you're not really my family anymore, and you're just treating me, your beloved son, as, just a pawn for your business. You don't actually love me or respect me, so why should I care about you? And that's kind of the vibe I get for why he did it.
Well, and also, it is interesting, and I don't know, I'm more thinking of the community exchanges than I am thinking of the cultures themselves. But the reason that they call him Rabbi is because he was raised by Jews.
Right.
So, like, I think it weaves nicely into the melting pot of America.
Yeah, that's it's the whole theme of the season. Speaking of which, we get back to Oretta.
Meanwhile, on the Mayflower,
she goes to that private hospital that wouldn't serve the Italians, the Fata family, to apply for a job from the same would-be victim of the drive-by shooting.
Let's not forget that she got fired last week for killing people and stealing drugs.
Yes, and she's trying to sweet-talk him and find out what his favorite pie is and everything, and he kind of warms up to the idea and decides to hire her. She's like, oh, thank you, kind of. But when she's leaving, she sees Josto parked outside, and she mistakenly thinks that he's there following her for a romantic interest because of their flirtatious encounter at the hospital. And so the real reason he's there, of course, is because he wants to watch this Dr. Harvard guy and follow him around to, know his routine so he can kill him. And she ends up going over to the car and visiting him, and she gets right into Josto's car, and he feigns it, like, what, who are you? She's like, oh, come on, don't tell me you forgot about our little thing the other day. And that's when she starts singing the song. What song was it again?
I got to look at the intro.
Yeah. So she gives him.
Oh, his truth goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
As she's giving him a hand job
Yeah.
in the front seat of the car.
After doing some blow.
Yeah. So yes, and yes, right. She gives him cocaine, and she gives him a hand job, and he kind of just. It's the beginning of a new relationship of sorts, because we later see that Josto has gone to her house and she's having very violent sex with him, where she's throttling him basically while she's fighting him.
That very easily could have been a 2-person David Carradine.
Yeah, and Josto didn't seem to enjoy it, but maybe
no, he did.
He did enjoy being choked out like that.
That's why David Carradine.
All right, but
there is no had, and if anybody, I want to explain this.
I understand the David Carradine thing, but given her proclivities of being a serial killer and getting off on power and control, I felt almost like they started having sex and then she decided that she was going to take it to the next level for her own pleasure. And then he was like, "What are you?" Kind of just going along with it because he still likes her and enjoys it.
No, I think. Like, it's very interesting, Miss Mayflower. I don't think she's a bad person.
She's a serial killer.
I think that I know she's a serial killer. I think that she is. These are the leaps in logic that I've made. And there have been discrepancies in my theory, and so let's just keep watching the show. But the thing is that the people that she kills are always dying.
Well, I'll get to that when we bring that up in a minute, because that's
okay.
But here's the thing. So
I think that she was having the sex with Josto, and she was choking him to introduce him to the world of near asphyxiation. Orgasm, and that was because she is a nurse. Like, I think that there is a certain level of she chooses when to kill, but she also collects something. Like, she didn't kill old man Fadas for no reason. He was already pretty much dying. She just wanted to kill someone else.
I disagree. I think I'll get to this in a second, but here's the thing.
All right, let's go.
So Josto gets dressed, and Ethel shows up knocking on the door and interrupts, which gives Josto.
Wait, I'm going to interrupt because we do have Lemon Pie is back saying, "We're taking you in on the account of looking like an ogre," in regards to Gaetano.
Yes.
Rebel P. Hey, it's good to see you, Rebel P. Kat, you know Rebel Pastry?
No.
We'll say hi.
Hi, I did. I waved.
There you go. You waved and everything? Fuck, let's move on.
So Josto takes Ethel's arrival as a cue to sneak out the back door, or sneak out, and then Aretta's really upset, and Ethel's like, "Do you need a housekeeper? We really need the money." And it's interesting because they never showed Aretta's reaction to the fact that her family, that they didn't eat the pie, like the other sister did the Swanee did, but we're not sure if Aretta was disappointed because she doesn't even react to the fact that there was a massive police raid right after she delivered that pie across the street, which I thought was a little odd that they didn't come back to that immediately. So Aretta's like, it's almost like figures, okay, I'll take you on as a housekeeper, because she still wants to, whatever this special project is, because, okay, you would have gotten them sick with Ipecac, so what? It's like, what were you trying to really achieve with that? I don't know. So she employs her as a housekeeper, and when Ethel has the time alone, she goes to clean the closet, and she sees all of the poisons and the medications and stuff that Aretta has stolen from the hospital, like cyanide, Ipecac, oxide, and all this stuff. And Aretta's cat, Tabby Cat, jumps up on the shelf, and Ethel tries to shoo the cat away and knocks over one of the bottles of laudanum, and she catches it. But as she's putting the bottle back to shoo away the cat, she knocks over a box, and all these little newspaper clippings fall out. And she picks it up, and the first one is about this young woman, 23 years old, who got admitted to the hospital for a minor illness. And I actually froze the screen so I could read the whole thing. It's legible. And it was something minor that she was expected to recover from, but suddenly she didn't. And then she sees another one about Lamar, this married man who was also admitted to the hospital for a basic procedure, and something wrong, and he didn't. And then she sees a little drawer there, like almost like a mini cash register thing. She opens it, takes
Yeah.
Donatello's ring, and she takes a clasp out that says Lamar, like love June. And she looks back at that clipping she just looked at, and it was the guy's name was Lamar. And then she looks and sees all these other things, like these mementos, and she's smart and intelligent. And she sees all these other clippings, and she's piecing it to. I think she's intelligent enough to kind of get the. It's like, okay, these are people, because again, she knows Loretta's a nurse, and she knows that because they refer to her as the nurse who lives across the street, so she knows she's a nurse. Doesn't necessarily know she's been fired or hired somewhere else, but she sees that she's got newspaper clippings of a bunch of dead people who've died all in the hospital, because that's the clippings she's reading. And she saw the clasp signed with Lamar, and she's like, and so she's looking at all these other things and looking at that, and it's like she's putting it together in her head that, oh God, this like is it? And she's kind of worried about it, and she's kind of iffy, but she puts the stuff away, mistakenly sets her notebook on the side, one of the side racks in the closet, that she forgot to pick it back up. And because she heard somebody coming, or a knock, or the cat or something, or the phone ring, whatever it was, she quickly closes the door, but she also forgets to put back Donatello's ring. And I think
I was wondering if she still had the ring.
Yeah, she still had the ring, so she puts it back. So now she knows Loretta's secret, that she's collecting mementos from all these dead patients. Now, she doesn't know for certain that Loretta's killed anybody, but she saw all the poisons. You have poisons, you have documentation that you're collecting papers of all these hospital patients who've died, and you've got their personal jewelry and stuff. I think she's piecing it together. It's like, it's pretty much, might as well be a big neon sign. I am a serial killer.
Yeah, but the thing is that it is an orgy of evidence. Hey, Matt G.
Yes.
It is an orgy of evidence. It was telegraphed or foreshadowed, however you want to say. And it was like, don't open that door. Aretta says, don't open that door.
Right.
So, of course, she does. Ethelrita, I mean. And the contrived, like, the cat wasn't the jump scare, but the cat knocked over the bottle, which you thought was going to be the thing that would throw her off. And it tries to mount the tension. And the only way it would work, and of course you're not going to do that in the 4th episode, is have Mayflower walk in on Ethel.
Right.
But that wasn't going to happen. And so she does the dumbest, stupidest shit in the most plot contrived fucking closet. Like, it is, that scene is like, everything would have been great if Ethelrita had just left her list on a table, and then we find out later. Like, instead of it being in the apartment, or in the death closet.
Well, I could buy that she panicked and forgot that it was there. She initially set it down to grab
the phone rang?
Well, the phone rang and it initially jumped her, and maybe she just forgot. It's possible. People do that thing all the time. They sit something down and they forget that it's there. And I thought it was interesting that the phone keeps ringing when it cut to the next scene, like it was adding to the tension or something. But so she leaves.
That's what I mean. It is a very tense, like, building the tension of the show. Let's finish with the plot before we get to the construction.
So the thing about this, and why I think Aretta is a serial killer, from reading the descriptions on the newspapers, she's not killing people who were already dying. She's because if they were already dying, there'd be no reason for the hospital staff to be curious about it. It's like, okay, you were taking care of dying patients. She's killing patients who were having procedures that should not have killed them. And the fact that she's the only one who that they're only dying on her watch when they shouldn't be dying is like a flag. And the fact that she's got a trophy room, which is basically what this is. I agree 100% that it's contrived that she keeps it in the closet and not hidden under floorboards or something.
Sure.
But it's like, she's proud of this. She does this. She gets off on it. It's the power she wants. Because if she wanted to, like to your point that Donatello was probably going to die anyway, there's other ways she could have killed him. She could have unhooked his IV without him knowing it, because there's the second line. She could have, or just not delivered his food because he's sitting there. She could have done anything to try and accentuate this, because the other guy was sitting behind him watching him. He's not going to know how the IV shit works. She could just kind of surreptitiously unplug it or whatever. And rather than trying to inject something in the bottle in the room, it would be more logical if once that IV bag runs out, she poisons the other one in the next one in the closet and just brings it up and hangs it up like it's normal. But they were trying to make it look more nefarious in the staging of the scene.
Yeah.
But she's clearly a psycho who gets off on the power, which is why she was throttling Josto, because it's not simple autoerotic asphyxiation for her. It's the power. That's what she likes. And that's what she's getting off on. And she has all those trophies, which is why she was so eager to, get another job in the same exact field,
Autoerotic asphyxiation is when you do it to yourself.
Right.
Erotic asphyxiation. You do it to someone else.
Right. So
I heard.
So that's where we leave Ethel. She leaves. And meanwhile, Thurman is loading a body into his hearse from wherever he's at. And Zelmera shows up and gets in the front seat of the car and brings him a big duffel bag of money. He's like, "Where did you get this?" And she's like, "Thurman, you need to learn when the money fairy comes that you don't ask where the money came from." And he's like, "But it's like, I know you have problems here. This is going to deal with it. Take it. It's yours." And then she's like, "But one thing, where did you get that pie? Huh? The pie that we took from the neighbor, the nurse lady. Why do you care about dessert?" She's like, "No, I don't care about the dessert. Just take the money." And he's kind of, it's not anywhere near as much as a beloved dimwit as Wayne was in the fifth season, but he's kind of not all like thinking. He doesn't find this he finds it a little bit suspicious, but he's not going to push it. He's like, "Oh, okay, I'll take this big bottle of money." Oh, he just takes the money like it's no thing, and he goes.
That I find that to be very, very Fargo, in that it's also lemon pie with a bon mot. Who is the fastest seamstress in the world? Taylor Swift. Ba-dum-bum-ba-dum. Yeah. So thank you, Lemon. But Jerry Lundegaard is trying to get money to save for something that he thinks is going to make him a lot of money. The entire reason that Thurston decides to accept the money is because it's a great deal. You got to take the deal.
But he knows these are fugitives and escaped convicts. It should dawn on him that they obviously committed a crime or stole this from somebody else, and he's not interested. He doesn't push the issue enough. It's like, this could be like robbing Peter to pay Paul and then having to come back and suffer Peter's wrath, But he accepts the money because we don't know how long the loan that Loy gave him was supposed to last before they'd have to start paying back interest, or how they planned on paying it back.
Oh, I know how long it'll be. Approximately next episode, and interest will be paid.
Well, yeah, because what I meant originally. So he takes the duffel bag of money and goes to Loy's house, and Loy, his son, the one who was going to get shot, he's like, "Dad, there's a white man on our front porch." And I love how he just answers the door with his shotgun, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And he recognizes him. "Hey, Herc."
Hey, Herc.
And Thurman holds up his hands with the duffel bag still in his hand, which I thought was funny because he's able to hold the big bag of money with the one hand. And so he invites him in, and he's looking through the money, and he's like, "Where did you get this?" And he's like, "Well, there was an uncle I had. What's his uncle's name? Boulay or Booley or whatever. And he died, and he left me all this money." He's like, "Your uncle left you cash money, this much cash in a duffel bag?" "No, it was in checks, but I thought it'd make it more convenient for you." And he's like, "I can't remember the last time a white man wanted to make something convenient for me." And he's like, "Oh, well, what can I say?" And Loy decides initially that he's just going to accept this. Good luck came his way. So he's like, "Goodbye. Okay, you can leave now." And he's like, "Man, you really have a nice house here." I said, "Get out." So
yeah, leave now.
Leave now. So Thurman leaves, and then Loy's looking at the money again. Initially kind of happy, but then he catches a whiff of it because Dr. Senator told him that one of the thieves vomited all over the money because they're still scrubbing it off the floor. And he sniffs it again, and it suddenly dawns on him that they stole the money from them, or put them up to it.
Or at least that is the stolen money.
Yeah, that is the stolen money. And his aggressive reaction, you could tell he's automatically thinking that Thurman and the wife, put somebody up to it. They put the women up to it. Like, "Oh, you're going to take a loan from me and then pay me back by stealing my own money." And so he's like, "Son of a bitch." And he runs, and we don't know where he goes initially. But Thurman goes back home, and Ethel and her mom are in the kitchen cleaning up, preparing for dinner. And Thurman's kind of happy. And he's like, "Oh, we did it. All the problems are going away. We're great." And he's pouring the drink. And surprisingly, Ethel's mom for the first time doesn't tell Ethel to get up to her room
I
because
was surprised too.
yeah, because as far as Ethel's mom is concerned, Ethel doesn't yet know about the debt. Of course, she does because the father told her, but the mom doesn't know that yet. So she doesn't tell her to go upstairs. And so the father's like, "Our debt, I cleared it. It fixed itself." And she's immediately kind of scared. And Ethel's kind of, "Oh, okay, Dad." And he's like, and she's like, "What did you do?" He's like, "Well, opportunity knocked, and I decided to accept." And she's like, "What did you do? Where did you get that money?" It's like, well, yeah, and she's smart. She can figure out. She knows damn well where he got the money from.
Well, he's been pretty milquetoast so far, and so when he's like, "I'm a man," and then
Yeah,
she's like, "No, you're not."
and so she immediately puts two and two together and realizes that her sister robbed the cannons. She's like, "You know where that money came from?" So she's like, "Oh shit, my sister robbed the cannons," which again strengthens my position. Is that if she's able to jump to that conclusion so quickly, she should have told her sister not to fuck with the cannons. But it's like, so now she's really worried that they're going to be in big trouble, and that's where we leave our characters at the end of this episode. So I did
Yes,
like in
with
this
the
for
cannon, like Loy Cannon is coming to the mortuary to exact suspicions.
yes, because admittedly that they would take a loan if they were capable of just robbing you outright begs the question, why take the loan at all and simply just rob the money, steal the money, and because he knows it's his. So we're going to see how Lloyd deals with this. But there are a few things I liked about this episode.
Yes.
I like the character Deafy. I really like him, and and the way Timothy Olyphant plays him. He's kind of a quirky Fargo character. I really like that guy so far. I like what's going on with the fugitives. That's a fun storyline. And I kind of like where the Oretta story might be going. The main conflict that they're teasing, a potential mob war between the Cannons and the Fadas, and an inner war between Josto and Gaetano, and the fact that Gaetano has already won people over in the family, and Josto. I'm honestly not that interested in it because, again, I've seen season 2, another mob war story, which was done fabulously well, and this one, frankly, just isn't being done anywhere near as well as that one was. So it's like, I feel they're retreading the same type of plot, one family versus another family, but they're not. But it's so much more rote and not as much. It's not like Gaetano is certainly the most colorful, I think, character between the two, between in the Fadas, in terms of just being almost like a cartoon character. I'm tough. I'm gonna fight. Whereas in season 2, you have a lot of colorful characters that aren't that cartoonish though. And it's just a fun interplay. And granted, you have the advantage here because you haven't seen season 2, so you're going to be in for a double big surprise when you see it. But me having already seen that, it's like I'm just really not invested in this mob story they're telling. I like the periphery stuff though, and I am intrigued to see where Rabbi will end up, given that he is the only one left with the name Milligan, which I know has a connection to season 2. So we'll see where that goes.
Well, it's interesting for me just to be able to watch it, and like also, as I've mentioned before on previous conversations with you, is that this is a spot the Coen brothers reference, which is kind of fun, and it is this one, maybe because it's 1950, maybe it's because it's like period, is that I'm getting some Miller's Crossing out of this. Like I'm getting stuff out of this that is the music and the aesthetic and the cars and the technology, and again the Minnesota nice of it. Like when Mayflower starts doing stuff, I'm just like, there's Fargo.
Mm-hmm.
What a terrible thing when Fargo leaves Fargo. Like and also it's becoming winter, and they're doing the musical stuff with.
Oh yeah, they did finally allude. They've been playing the music from the other shows and the movies now a little bit, and
Well, I've heard, yeah.
I did, and they did have the mention of Fargo. There is a Fargo crime family, and I'm
Yes.
surprised by that because it's like, okay, because I know in season, I'm not going to say much because we know in season 1 that there's a crime family, a mafia in Fargo.
Sure.
I don't know who Mort Kellerman is though. He's said to be the leader of the mafia crime family or Fargo family in or the Fargo Mafia in 1950. And so we'll see if that plays into it. I assume so at some point, because otherwise they wouldn't have bothered name dropping him. They would have just said, the Fargo Syndicate.
Well, but you know how when you're watching this and you're like, I can't keep track of all these names. when we get to season 2, you'll be like, Scott, and that's the guy from season 4. And I'll be like, oh, yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna say any more about that, but I
Well,
can tell you,
no, but even the entire, like, what is it? Isn't it the
I had a much
canon
easier time
group?
remembering all the names of the characters in season 2, as many of them as there were compared to this
Yeah.
season, simply because so many of these characters and the mob families are, again, kind of bland, rote characters. And I think because the ensemble is so huge, I feel each character's storyline is barely inching along in each episode. It's like I feel
I
like Loy had three brief scenes. I wanted to spend more time with Loy. I wanted to spend maybe more time with Dr. Senator. And it's like
no,
but it's crawling. It feels like it's kind of crawling along to like Josto seemed like he was barely in it. I was like, I kind of want to spend more time with these people, and I hope that the ensemble doesn't get too much bigger. I kind of think they should either shrink the ensemble or, definitely don't make it bigger at this point.
well, like, things that I liked about this episode. Of course, I enjoyed Dr. Senator. He is
Oh, I love
absolutely fantastic. I really like Josto. Just because I like Jason
them.
Schwartzman's performance. The whole thing, like it's funny that the most Fargo puzzle piece finally happened in episode 4 with Thurston thinking that he had got a money
Oh, Thurman,
windfall,
yeah.
and he's fucked. He's the Jerry Lundergaard, even though he's not from Minnesota. Like, I enjoy how the balance and being thrown around. Yeah, I guess it's a little True Blood. Like, I don't know. Maybe they have weighted them into too many side characters or an ensemble, as you say. But I'm still engaged because every time meanwhile, back at the wherever, it's like, I like that person. I like these, like, everybody's engaging. I'm never bored.
Mm.
So so far.
Well, I just feel, I guess, kind of like, how season 5 in the first episode, Roy Tillman only shows up in one shot, but they
Sure.
don't introduce him to the second episode. Like, they introduced the few characters they need. They only add characters on the song to the ensemble as needed for the story. This one, I just felt threw everybody at you almost all at once, with the exception of Deffy, who didn't show up until the end of the second episode. And it's like, I feel like this is what you're trying to introduce all these characters at the same time. It's kind of all over the place. Like, can we maybe move it along, do it a little better next time, which they did again in
Well,
season 5 when
and
the way.
I don't know if we've already, like, I'm wondering, like, the BB was the inciting incident.
Right, which Josto surprisingly again knows that kids probably did it, and he's very
Yeah.
forgiving about that and understanding, which is
That's why
surprising.
he's only pissed off at the doctor. That's all he's mad at, is the doctor who cast them out of the hospital.
Yeah, because he's reasonable that, I can't blame kids for this, which is surprising that a gangster would be that forgiving. But Josto certainly isn't violent. I'm sure if Gaetano was there and saw that happen, he probably would have killed the kids.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So these are I am in the blissful ignorance of not having seen the rest of this season. This is my first time viewing, and I'm enjoying where the story is going. And I'm not on the edge of my seat at the end of each episode, but while I'm watching each episode, I'm waiting for someone else to fuck up.
Right.
Like, someone's going to do something stupid. Maybe that's what the backlash is for, is that everybody's just stupid.
You mean the backlash for the season?
Yeah.
Well, I think the backlash, part of it was that they felt it was almost too detached from the whole Fargo culture and theme, because Zaretta, like you said, is the only Minnesota Nice type feeling of the show. And the fact that they felt the season wasn't self-serious, but it didn't have as much of a quirky, funny tone as the other seasons. Like,
I don't
even
know, that gas station guy was pretty Coen Brothers.
Yeah, well, you mentioned, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
In reference to what?
Well, no, like,
Like a
even
particular film, or?
well, yeah, I keep going back even to the comedies of the Coen brothers. I think that Fargo is referential as a whole. Obviously, it is a cake built on Fargo, but whenever they can shoot in like a Coen-esque character or a Coen-esque casting, it feels like, oh, this is a TV version of a Coen Brothers movie. Like they do drop things in that, like even with the poisoning of Swanee, and she's like farting relentlessly and trying to fight through it, and it's funny for a time until it becomes serious, which is kind of what happens in Coen Brothers movies. At least the serious ones, they're comedies. They're all based on immediacy that turn into chaos, but
Well, I think
like
it's
there
also
is,
the length, because some of those quirky moments are few and far between in these
sure,
episodes compared
yes,
to the season we just watched, let's say, or even season 1.
yeah.
And I would
No,
say,
I know. And if you don't maintain that feeling for 10 episodes, then, and this one's going up to 11.
yeah, literally.
But I'm still happy to be going.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to stop watching it because we're invested and I have it, so we'll keep watching
I've
it.
done it before. You
But
can stop whenever you want.
I'm starting to get a little bit more invested. I'm like, okay, the plot thickens.
Yeah.
So I hope they continue to thicken it in an interesting way and not just, mafioso stuff. I want to see that quirky stuff like with the fugitives and with Defi and with Loretta, and see where this, and the weird relationship that Loretta has with Josto, where that's going to go, and if Josto will ever get back at Dr. Harvard. So, or
Well,
how many of Dr. Harvard? I wonder if that's how it's going to happen. I wonder if Loretta, prediction time, is she going to start killing Dr. Harvard's patients and cause problems, because that's a private hospital, remember. People pay a lot more because they expect, because he made a point of saying it wasn't, yes, it was simple racism, they were throwing them out, but they could get away with it because it was a private hospital, so they have the right to admit who they want. And they said you can go down to the public hospital. So what happens if the private hospital's patients, who by definition have to be part of a proper insurance company or pay more, start dying? I don't think they're just going to accept, oh, well, these things happen, type of excuses. So I wonder if that's we'll see how that goes. Because now that Ethel knows, depending on whether she keeps the job as the housekeeper, she could be, which initially, because she doesn't remember she left her notebook in there, she could feign
yeah.
ignorance to the fact that she was ever there and keep working to make it look like, oh, shipshape. And if Loretta finds the notebook in there, she might find it fun that Ethel hasn't done anything. It's like, well, the cops aren't here, so Ethel hasn't ratted me out. Ooh, this is fun. This is going to escalate our little weird game, And could she tip off Josto, maybe, Ethel? Like, tell him, like, hey, your girlfriend is kind of a psycho. And he's like, oh, but she's employed at the new hospital. That's how we'll get back at this guy. We'll ruin his life, So I'm just spitballing of where all the directions that this could go.
Well, I have a question. For you, Kat.
Yeah.
And also Lemon has a statement that says, I like Kat's hat.
Thank you. It is quite demonic, isn't it?
I prefer the sunglasses. But Jerry Lundegaard, Martin Freeman,
Lester Nygaard,
and John Hamm.
Roy Tillman, completely different type of character from the first two, but okay.
No, absolutely. All three of these people are the ones that we wanted to see get their comeuppance and scream in a feral way as they are being hauled away. We did not get it with Lester. We did get it, in my opinion, from Roy and Jerry.
Definitely from Jerry. I think they could have gotten more from Roy.
But I was happy with the amount that was there. Who is the person in this show that you want to see get their comeuppance?
Well, Loretta. Because
you want to see her respond as a trapped animal while she is confronted, or do you want to see her get killed?
A trapped animal, because it would be appropriate given that she's killing, people who are incapacitated and can't defend themselves.
And she has made mention to wanting to be footloose and fancy free.
Yeah, and because she's a psychopath, and
there is that.
A power control thing that's for her. But it's kind of weird. In a sense, it's like, yes, on paper, yes, she's evil, clearly, going after helpless people, regardless of whether those people are, guilty, good guys or bad guys. But I don't feel like she's not getting under my skin in the way that Lester and Roy did. Whereas Jerry just seemed like a hapless idiot. So yeah, it was satisfying to see him kind of in a sense. It wasn't entirely satisfying because Jerry's plan was never to be that. Like Lester was pure evil, that he was killing people, he was framing innocent people, all this kind of stuff. Jerry didn't think anything was. Crime was extreme naivete. He thought this was going to be a simple thing. Wife's going to be kidnapped. I can get the money. We're going to get her back. It'll be fine. And it just spiraled out of control because he's an idiot. And so I didn't feel like, yes, justice was served because they caught him, but I didn't feel super satisfied when they caught him and he was squealing or whatever, because it wasn't something that was motivated by pure evil. Like his father-in-law was really screwing him over and he wanted to stick it to the father-in-law type of thing. Whereas with season 1, Lester is just, he becomes so evil that you just want to be that guy for it. And Roy Tillman, oh my God, the guy is just, like when Lorraine says, oh, you just want to be a man with no responsibilities whatsoever. You just want to be a baby and you delegate all your tasks to other people and want to get your way. You just want to see him get it. And I'm not going to mention what the parallels would be for the season 2 and 3 characters like that. But season 4, it's like, yeah, on paper, it should be Aretta. She's the one I should want to see like that, given what she's doing. But she's entertaining enough compared to the rest of the characters in the show that I don't really want it to happen. I kind of want to, when we get to the end of the series, but she still hasn't. Like, you did something horrible, not because Donatello was a bad guy. She wasn't doing it in the service of peace and justice and saving. No, you did it just because you were psycho. But for some reason, it didn't get under my skin like it should. So maybe it will as the season goes on and she continued. Like for the Ipecac thing, it's like, okay, that's a really cruel prank, but it's not going to kill anybody. Like, what was that about? It's like, that was kind of weird, So. We'll see where this goes.
I have poisoning people isn't a way to conduct yourself in society.
Obviously, but for some reason, it's just not getting under my skin right now.
All right.
And I suspect she's going to become very evil because of, again, the parallel of what the season's about. It's like all these immigrants who are, again, being racist against each other when they should be seeking out the person who is the most evil amongst them, who's the whitest person in the show. And so I expect her to kind of up the ante through the season.
I don't know.
Nobody, other than Ethel, nobody is suspicious of her. Well, the people who fired her are, but they're too timid to do anything about it. Because
they were blackmailed.
Yeah, they were blackmailed, and plus they technically can't prove it. They just have the circumstance. Because he says a lot of your patients are dying and medications are disappearing. We can't prove that you stole it, but I'm assuming that this is, so technically they can't prove that she killed anybody, or that because if you can't prove that she stole it, then they can't prove that she killed them. They could have just died on her watch. But so they don't really have enough to get her, but they're also like afraid of, the blackmail. So as far as our main characters are concerned, Ethel's the only one who knows the truth. So I'm guessing that Aretta will continue to be evil and will escalate and cause more problems for both sides. And maybe she will either intentionally or unintentionally exacerbate the conflict between the Cannons and the Fadas. But I do think that she is, in a sense, going to be the bigger source of everybody's problems by the end of the season, given the themes of the show, which is that you immigrants should be banding together against the oppressive establishment. You shouldn't be fighting and killing each other. Case in point, look what this lady's doing to the most vulnerable members of society just for her own sick kicks. Like, that's the person you should be ganging up on.
I don't know. I feel like they are trying in their own way, but let's not forget we're watching this through the prism of organized crime. We're not talking about the honest, hardworking Americans. This is allegory or metaphor or some such nonsense. Like I'm enjoying the allegory and the metaphor and the some such nonsense. I'm looking forward to seeing it go forward. Yeah.
I'm actually not upset with the Cannon crime family because, like they said, they fled the Jim Crow South, which is horrific and horrible. And it's like, you're going to treat us this way in this country, our own country that we live in, then, fuck you. It's like, I don't have a problem. So I morally don't really have a problem with it. That they're the ones.
I still appreciate the Fadas because they're not like, at least Josto is saying that he don't kill, do not kill. That's why I'm mad at Gaetano. Is that Gaetano is like, let's go fuck shit up. And it's like, and he's got crazy eyes.
I do, but I also like that they gave his character a little bit of depth because they told us about his background in Italy during the war,
Yes.
which kind of
Yes, he lived
contextualizes
in.
why. Not only did the war, he was probably a sociopath to begin with, and probably a little off to begin with, but you could tell that because of how they had to deal with things in the war, it's like I can't just switch it off when I come to America. It's like, and seeing that Josto is taking over the family and how he's running it, it's just such a polar opposite from the way that they dealt with things in the war, that he's like, I can't stand for this. I need to do something. So in a way, I kind of like that. Yes, he's very cartoonish and kind of the ogre, but I do like that they did take at least an effort to try and give some context for it, which I can appreciate that.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any other comments?
Last one was Lemon's compliment on your hat.
Thanks again.
But I did want to say thanks for hanging out, Herc. Thank you for being here, DJ Play Nice. Taylor Swift, greater than Disney, Star Wars, and MCU. Thank you very much for the smile and wave. Rebellious Pastry, hello, goodbye, and bless. And I think that's everybody who was here, except for the lurkers who chose not to chat. And I understand, I've been there myself. Thank you so much, guys. Next week, like same Fargo time, same Fargo channel.
7 next week, maybe, or instead of.
Sorry, that was an accident.
Yeah, so we're gonna start it. Well, same time. We started late this week, so
we did.
So we'll try and start at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific next week.
Oh, you betcha.